The sound of metal scraping against frozen concrete echoed through the pre-dawn silence as Yuri Vance worked his shovel with determined precision, clearing the driveway of a house he had never entered. His breath formed white clouds in the bitter February air, and his shoulders ached from the 2 other driveways he had already finished that morning. But he kept moving because his daughter needed new shoes, and the heating bill was due next week. Victoria Owens watched from her bedroom window on the 2nd floor, coffee mug warming her hands as she observed the stranger methodically clearing the snow that had fallen during the night. She had moved into this quiet neighborhood 6 months ago, seeking refuge from the constant demands of running a tech empire, and she had never seen this man before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the efficiency of someone who knew hard work intimately. Something about the way he attacked the task with quiet determination made her pause her usual morning routine of checking overseas markets and responding to urgent emails. Yuri finished the driveway in 20 minutes, his back protesting every movement. He was 32, but felt 50-some mornings. He took a moment to survey his work, satisfied despite knowing he would not be paid for this particular job. Old Mrs. Chen, 3 houses down, had mentioned yesterday that her neighbor was a single woman who worked long hours, and Yuri had added the address to his route without a second thought. His mother had raised him to look out for people who might need help, and old habits died hard even when your bank account was running on fumes. He was loading his shovel back into his ancient pickup truck when the front door opened. "Excuse me," Victoria called out, pulling her cardigan tighter against the cold. She had thrown on the first thing she could find, suddenly self-conscious about her expensive silk pajamas under the cashmere. "Did someone hire you to do that?" Yuri turned, and Victoria felt something unexpected flutter in her chest. He had kind eyes, the color of warm honey, and despite the obvious weariness in his posture, his smile was genuine. "No, madam," he said, his voice rough from the cold. "Just helping out, Mrs. Chen mentioned you work early hours, figured you might need a clear path." "I can't just let you work for free," Victoria protested, already mentally calculating what snow removal services cost. She had no idea, honestly. Her assistant usually handled such things at her downtown penthouse. "Please, let me pay you." "No need," Yuri said, climbing into his truck. "Pay it forward when you get the chance." Before Victoria could respond, he had pulled away, the truck's engine rattling ominously as it disappeared down the street. She stood on her front step, barefoot and bewildered, feeling something she had not felt in years. Not since before the venture capital deals and the hostile takeover attempts and the endless board meetings. She felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with her net worth or her position as CEO of Oasis Technologies. That night, lying in bed, Victoria could not stop thinking about the stranger with the worn work gloves and the smile that reached his eyes. She was being ridiculous, she told herself. She was 30 years old, a self-made billionaire, and she had spent the day negotiating a merger that would expand her company into 3 new markets. She did not have time to daydream about a man who shoveled snow. But when she closed her eyes, she saw his hands gripping the shovel, capable and strong, and the way he had waved off her offer of payment like it was nothing. Yuri arrived home to his small rental house just as the sun was coming up, exhausted but satisfied with the $200 he had earned that morning. His daughter Emma was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her homework spread out around her. At 8 years old, she was too serious for her age, too aware of how hard her father worked to keep them afloat. "Morning, princess," Yuri said, kissing the top of her head. Her dark hair was tangled from sleep, and she was still wearing her favorite dinosaur pajamas. "You are up early." "Math test today," Emma said, chewing on her pencil. "Did you make enough for my field trip?" Yuri's heart clenched. The field trip to the Science Museum was in 2 weeks, and the permission slip sitting on the refrigerator might as well have been a bill for $1,000. $35 was not much to most people, but it meant juggling which bills got paid on time. "Do not worry about that," he said firmly. "You will go on that field trip, I promise." Emma looked up at him with eyes that were far too knowing. "It is okay if I cannot go, Dad. I know things are tight." "Hey," Yuri said, crouching down beside her chair. "That is not for you to worry about. You are 8. Your job is to be a kid, do your homework, and let me handle the grown-up stuff." "Got it," she nodded, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. It killed him, that doubt. Emma had been 5 when her mother left, deciding that being a parent was not the adventure she had signed up for. Melissa had wanted excitement and spontaneity, not a mortgage and a baby. The divorce had been quick and brutal, and she had moved to California without a backward glance. Emma barely remembered her now, which Yuri supposed was a mercy, but he saw the wound in other ways. In how she tried to be small and undemanding, in how she never asked for things other kids took for granted. "I will make you breakfast," Yuri said, standing up with a grunt. His back was definitely going to need some ibuprofen. "Pancakes? Just cereal is fine," Emma said quickly. "You should rest." "Pancakes," Yuri insisted, already pulling out the mix, "with chocolate chips because it is Tuesday and Tuesdays need chocolate." Emma's smile was worth every ache in his body. 3 days later, another snowstorm hit. Yuri was up at 4 in the morning, pulling on his warmest jacket and heading out into the darkness. He hit his regular clients first, the people who paid him $20 or $30 per driveway. And then, because he apparently had no sense of self-preservation when it came to beautiful women who made his heart do stupid things, he drove to Victoria's house. The street was quiet, most of the houses still dark. Yuri had just started on the driveway when the front door opened and Victoria stepped out, this time actually dressed for the weather in a down coat and boots. "I hoped it was you," she said, walking down the path he had not yet cleared. "I have been watching for your truck." Yuri leaned on his shovel, caught off guard. "You did not need to come out here." "I know," Victoria said, "but I wanted to. I am Victoria, by the way, Victoria Owens." "Yuri Vance," he replied, pulling off his glove to shake her offered hand. Her grip was firm, confident, and her hand was soft and warm in his cold, calloused one. "You really do not need to pay me for this. I am happy to help." "What if I said I wanted to hire you officially?" Victoria asked. "I need someone reliable for snow removal, and clearly you are the most reliable person in the neighborhood since you are out here at 4:30 in the morning doing work for free." Yuri hesitated, pride warred with practicality. "I appreciate that, but I do not need charity." "It is not charity," Victoria said firmly. "It is business. I need a service, you provide that service. Plus, I am terrible at remembering to schedule these things, so having someone who just shows up would be perfect." There was something in her eyes, a directness that he found both intimidating and attractive. She was not pitying him. She was making a straightforward business proposition. $30 per snow, Yuri said. "Same as my other clients." "Done," Victoria said immediately. Then, after a pause, "Would you like some coffee? I just made a fresh pot, and it is freezing out here." Every instinct told Yuri to decline, to maintain professional distance, to finish the job and move on to the next house. But something about Victoria made him want to stay, and it had been so long since he had wanted anything beyond making it through another day. "Yeah," he said. "Coffee would be great." Victoria's house was warm and elegant without being ostentatious. Yuri noticed the expensive furniture and the original artwork on the walls, but what struck him most was how empty it felt. Like a hotel room rather than a home. There were no personal photos, no clutter, nothing that spoke of a life being lived within these walls. Cream and sugar. Victoria asked, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. "Black is fine," Yuri said, accepting the mug gratefully. The warmth seeped into his frozen fingers. "Thank you." They stood in her kitchen, 2 strangers sharing coffee in the pre-dawn darkness, and talked. Victoria asked about his business, and Yuri found himself explaining how he had started the snow removal service 3 years ago, to supplement his income from his day job at the warehouse. He did not mention Emma at first, some protective instinct keeping his daughter separate from this unexpected connection, but Victoria had a way of asking questions that made him want to answer honestly. "I have a daughter," he said finally. "Emma, she is 8. This business, the extra money, it is all for her, to give her chances I did not have." Victoria's expression softened. "That is admirable. It is just what you do," Yuri said with a shrug. "She is my whole world." Something flickered across Victoria's face, an emotion Yuri could not quite name. Longing, maybe, or sadness. "I should finish your driveway," he said, setting down his empty mug. "I have 4 more houses to hit before I need to get Emma up for school." "Of course," Victoria said quickly. "Thank you for the coffee break." "Thank you for the coffee," Yuri replied. "And for the job." He was almost to the door when Victoria spoke again. "Yuri, would you maybe want to have coffee again sometime? Not just when it snows, properly, I mean." Yuri turned back to look at her, this beautiful woman in her expensive house, and wondered what she could possibly see in a broke single father who smelled like snow and sweat. But the hope in her eyes was real, and he found himself nodding before his brain could catalog all the reasons this was a terrible idea. "I would like that," he said. "I would like that a lot." Victoria's smile could have lit up the entire neighborhood. Over the next 2 weeks, Yuri and Victoria fell into an unexpected pattern. When it snowed, he would clear her driveway, and she would have coffee ready. On the days when it did not snow, they would text brief messages that gradually became longer and more personal. Victoria learned that Yuri had grown up in foster care, bouncing between homes until he aged out of the system at 18. He had put himself through a year of community college before running out of money, and he had met Emma's mother when they were both working at a diner. Yuri learned that Victoria had built her company from nothing, starting with a single app she had coded in her college dorm room. Oasis Technologies now employed over 5,000 people and was valued at $3 billion. She did not tell him that part, though. She described her work vaguely, calling herself a business owner who dealt with software development. It was not quite a lie, but it was not the whole truth either, and the omission sat uncomfortably in her chest. She told herself she was being practical. Yuri was proud. She could see that clearly, and if he knew the full extent of her wealth, it might change things between them. She wanted him to see her as just Victoria, not as the CEO who had been featured on the cover of Forbes magazine, or the woman who had turned down a buyout offer from one of the biggest tech giants in the world. Their first real date happened on a Saturday afternoon. Yuri had dropped Emma off at a birthday party, and Victoria had cleared her schedule, ignoring the 14 urgent emails that had accumulated before noon. They met at a small cafe downtown, nothing fancy, just good coffee and better conversation. "Tell me something nobody knows about you," Victoria said, wrapping her hands around her latte. Yuri considered the question. "I wanted to be a teacher," he said finally. "When I was in high school, I had this English teacher, Mr. Rodriguez, who was the first person to ever tell me I was smart. I wanted to be that person for other kids, but then life happened and college was not in the cards." "It is not too late," Victoria said gently. "You could still go back to school." "With what time?" Yuri laughed, but there was no bitterness in it, just acceptance. "Between the warehouse and the snow removal and being a dad, I am running on about 5 hours of sleep as it is. But Emma is smart, really smart. She's going to have all the opportunities I did not. That is what matters." Victoria found herself falling a little bit in love with him right then, with his selflessness and his unwavering devotion to his daughter. "Your turn," Yuri said. "Tell me something nobody knows." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "I am lonely," she said finally. "I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and I am so lonely sometimes I cannot breathe. Everyone who knows me wants something from me. Investors want money, employees want jobs, the press wants a story." You are the first person in years who talked to me before knowing what I could do for them." Yuri reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was rough with calluses, his fingers strong and warm. "I like talking to you," he said simply. "You make me feel like maybe I am not just a guy who is barely keeping his head above water. You make me feel like I am interesting." "You are interesting," Victoria said. "You are kind and hardworking and a wonderful father. You are the most interesting person I have met in years." They sat there, hands linked across the table, and Victoria felt something shift inside her. This was dangerous, she knew. Yuri did not know who she really was, and the longer she waited to tell him, the worse the revelation would be. But she was so tired of being Victoria Owens, CEO. She wanted to be just Victoria, a woman having coffee with a man who made her heart race. Emma was skeptical when Yuri mentioned he was seeing someone. They were making dinner together, Yuri chopping vegetables while Emma set the table, when he brought it up as casually as he could manage. "Her name is Victoria," he said, scraping diced onions into the pan. "She lives in that nice neighborhood where I do the snow removal. She is very kind, and I think you would like her." Emma was quiet for a moment, arranging forks with careful precision. Is she going to leave like Mom did? The question hit Yuri like a physical blow. He set down his knife and knelt beside his daughter, taking her small hands in his. "Emma, look at me," he said gently. When she lifted her eyes to his, he continued. "What happened with your mom was not your fault, and it had nothing to do with how wonderful you are. Some people are just not ready to be parents, but that does not mean everyone will leave. I am never leaving you, you know that, right?" "I know, Dad," Emma said softly. "But what if you like her more than me?" "That is impossible," Yuri said firmly. "You are my daughter. You are the most important person in my world, and nothing and no one will ever change that. Victoria is someone I like spending time with, but you come first. Always. If you do not want me to see her, I will not." Emma considered this, her serious little face scrunched up in thought. "Do you really like her?" "I do," Yuri admitted. "I really do. She makes me happy, and I have not felt happy like this in a long time, but your happiness matters more than mine." "That is dumb," Emma said, and Yuri blinked in surprise. "You are always working so hard to make me happy. You should get to be happy too. I guess I could meet her." Yuri pulled his daughter into a tight hug. "When did you get so wise?" "I have always been wise," Emma said, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "You just do not pay attention." Yuri laughed, and it felt good, the sound filling their small kitchen and chasing away the ghosts of worry that always seemed to linger. The introduction happened 2 weeks later at a park on a surprisingly warm Sunday afternoon. Victoria had been terrified, changing her outfit 3 times before settling on jeans and a simple sweater. She had negotiated multi-million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, but the thought of meeting Yuri's daughter had her palms clammy with nerves. Emma was cautious at first, staying close to Yuri's side and observing Victoria with the assessing gaze of someone much older than 8. But Victoria had come prepared. She had done her research, learning that Emma was fascinated by dinosaurs and space, and she had brought a book about paleontology that she had stumbled across at a bookstore. "I thought you might like this," Victoria said, offering the book. "I heard you are interested in science." Emma's eyes widened as she took the book, carefully examining the cover illustration of a T-Rex skeleton. "This is amazing," she breathed. "Did you know that T-Rex could bite with a force of 12,000 pounds? That is stronger than any living animal today." "I did not know that," Victoria said, settling onto the park bench beside Yuri. "What else can you tell me about dinosaurs?" For the next hour, Emma talked, her initial reserve melting away as she shared fact after fact about prehistoric creatures. Victoria listened with genuine interest, asking questions that made Emma's face light up with enthusiasm. Yuri watched the two of them, something warm and hopeful expanding in his chest. "Can we get ice cream?" Emma asked eventually, her energy finally flagging. "Absolutely," Yuri said, standing up and stretching. "Victoria, want to join us?" "I would love to," Victoria said, and she meant it with an intensity that surprised her. They walked to the ice cream shop 3 blocks away, Emma between them, chattering about the upcoming science fair at her school. When they reached the shop, Yuri ordered for Emma and himself, then turned to Victoria. "What do you want?" he asked. "My treat." "Yuri, I can buy my own ice cream," Victoria protested. "I know you can," Yuri said, "but I am asking you on a date with me and my daughter, so I am buying. What do you want?" Victoria felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. When was the last time someone had insisted on treating her? "Mint chocolate chip," she said. "Please." They ate their ice cream on the walk back to the park, and when Emma ran ahead to the playground, Yuri caught Victoria's hand. "Thank you," he said, "for being so good with her. She does not warm up to people easily." "She is amazing," Victoria said honestly. "You have done an incredible job raising her." "I am trying," Yuri said. "Most days I feel like I am barely holding it together, but then she says something or does something that makes me think maybe I am not completely screwing it up." "You are not screwing it up," Victoria assured him. "That little girl adores you, and she is kind and curious and wonderful. That is because of you." Yuri kissed her then, a soft, brief kiss that tasted like chocolate ice cream and felt like coming home. When they pulled apart, Emma was watching from the top of the slide, a considering expression on her face. Then she grinned and gave them a thumbs up before sliding down. "I think you have been approved," Yuri said, laughing. "Best approval I have ever received," Victoria said, and she meant it. As winter turned to spring, Victoria and Yuri's relationship deepened. They stole moments when they could, coffee dates before dawn and dinners after Emma went to bed. Victoria met Yuri at his small house, and for the first time, she understood what a home actually felt like. There were Emma's drawings on the refrigerator and dishes in the sink, and a worn couch that was clearly well-loved. It was nothing like her sterile showcase house, and it was perfect, but the lie of omission was growing heavier. Every time Yuri mentioned budgeting or expressed worry about an unexpected expense, Victoria felt the gap between them widen. She wanted to help, wanted to throw money at every problem, but she knew that would be the fastest way to lose him. Yuri was proud, and he would not accept what he would see as charity. The crisis came in early April. Emma got sick, a nasty flu that turned into pneumonia. Yuri called Victoria from the hospital, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "They want to keep her overnight for observation," he said. "The insurance will cover most of it, but the deductible is going to destroy me this month. I do not care about the money, I just need her to be okay." "She will be okay," Victoria said firmly, already grabbing her keys. "Which hospital?" "I am coming." "You do not need to do that," Yuri protested. "I know you have work." "You are more important," Victoria said. "Give me 20 minutes." She made it in 15, finding Yuri in the pediatric ward looking like he had aged 10 years. She pulled him into a hug, feeling him sag against her. "She is sleeping," he said. "The antibiotics are working, but she was so sick, Victoria. She could not breathe properly, and I just kept thinking, what if I had waited too long? What if I had tried to tough it out at home because of the cost?" "You got her here in time," Victoria said. "She is going to be fine." "Can I see her?" Emma looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, and Roman 4 in her arm and an oxygen monitor clipped to her finger. But her color was better than Yuri had described, and she was sleeping peacefully. "Hey, sweetheart," Victoria whispered, smoothing Emma's hair back from her forehead. "You gave us quite a scare." Over the next 2 days, Victoria barely left the hospital. She brought Yuri food and coffee, made sure he slept, and read to Emma when she was awake. She also, without telling Yuri, quietly spoke to the hospital billing department and took care of the deductible. She knew he would be angry when he found out, but she could not stand by and watch him drown under the weight of medical bills when she had the means to help. Emma was released on the 3rd day, tired but recovering. Yuri carried her to his truck, and Victoria followed in her car, planning to help them get settled at home. The explosion came an hour after Emma was tucked into her own bed, sleeping soundly with her favorite stuffed dinosaur. Yuri had received the call from the hospital billing department, informing him that his balance had been paid in full. "It was you," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You paid it." "Yuri, please do not be angry," Victoria said. "I just wanted to help." "I did not ask for your help," Yuri said. "I had it handled. I was going to set up a payment plan. I do not need you swooping in and solving my problems." "It is $3,000, Victoria said, frustration bleeding into her voice. "It is not a big deal." "Not a big deal." Yuri laughed, the sound harsh. "That is 4 months of groceries for us. That is Emma's field trips and new clothes and every little thing she needs. Just because it is not a big deal to you does not mean it is not huge for me." "I know that," Victoria said. "I just wanted to help because I care about you, both of you." "And I appreciate that," Yuri said, running his hands through his hair. "But there is helping, and there is taking away my ability to take care of my own daughter. I am her father. Providing for her is my job, not yours." "So you would rather struggle under debt than accept help from someone who loves you?" Victoria snapped, and then froze as she realized what she had said. The silence stretched between them, heavy with revelation. "You love me?" Yuri asked quietly. "Yes," Victoria said. "I love you, I love Emma. I love your terrible coffee and your beat-up truck and the way you put everyone else before yourself. I love all of it, and I cannot stand watching you struggle when I have the means to make things easier." "Victoria," Yuri said, his anger deflating, "I am not a project for you to fix. I am a person and I have pride. Maybe that is stupid, maybe it is stubborn, but I need to be able to provide for my daughter. If you cannot understand that, then maybe this is not going to work." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "I understand," she said. "I am sorry. I should not have gone behind your back. You are right, that was not my place." Yuri sighed, the fight draining out of him. "I know you meant well, but you have to let me do this my way. Can you do that?" "I can try," Victoria said. "But Yuri, you need to understand something too. I have money. More than I have been entirely honest about, and I know that is not easy for you, but it is part of who I am. If we are going to make this work, we need to figure out how to navigate that. How much money are we talking about?" Yuri asked warily. Victoria took a deep breath. It was time for the truth. "I am the CEO of Oasis Technologies. Have you heard of it?" Yuri stared at her. "The company that makes half the apps on my phone, that Oasis Technologies?" "Yes," Victoria said. "I am sorry I was not completely honest from the beginning. I just wanted you to know me as Victoria, not as the CEO or the money. I wanted to be normal for once." "Normal," Yuri repeated, and then he started to laugh, a slightly hysterical edge to the sound. "I have been dating a billionaire, and I did not know. How did I not know?" "I did not want you to know," Victoria admitted. "I was scared it would change how you saw me." "Of course it changes things," Yuri said, but his voice was softer now, "but not in the way you think." "I am not angry that you have money, Victoria. I am angry that you were not honest. And I am scared because I have no idea how someone like me fits into your world." "The same way I fit into yours," Victoria said. "We figure it out together. If you want to, that is." Yuri looked at her for a long moment, and Victoria held her breath, waiting. "I love you too," he said finally. "I have been trying not to, because this whole thing seemed too good to be true, but I do. I love you and I want to make this work, but we need honesty between us. No more secrets, no more going behind each other's backs." "Deal, deal," Victoria said, relief flooding through her. "Complete honesty from now on." They sealed it with a kiss, and it felt like a new beginning. Over the next several months, they learned to navigate their vastly different worlds. Victoria introduced Yuri to her life slowly, starting with small things. She invited him to a company picnic, where he met some of her employees and saw firsthand the empire she had built. He was overwhelmed at first, intimidated by the scale of her success, but Victoria never made him feel less than. She valued his opinions, asked for his perspective, and made it clear that his work ethic and values were just as important as her business acumen. Yuri, in turn, helped Victoria reconnect with the simple pleasures she had lost in her climb to the top. They went to Emma's school plays and had movie nights with popcorn made on the stove. Victoria learned to cook real meals instead of relying on her chef, and she discovered that she actually enjoyed the ritual of preparing food for people she loved. Emma thrived with Victoria in her life. The older woman became a fixture at school events, sitting beside Yuri and cheering louder than anyone when Emma won third place at the science fair. Victoria never tried to replace Emma's mother, but she became something just as valuable. A constant, reliable presence who showed up and stayed. The proposal happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening in June. They were in Yuri's backyard, grilling burgers while Emma chased fireflies with a jar. Victoria was laughing at something Yuri had said, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and a smudge of barbecue sauce on her cheek, and Yuri looked at her and knew with absolute certainty that this was it. This was his forever. "Marry me," he said, the words tumbling out without planning or preamble. Victoria froze, her eyes going wide. "What? Marry me," Yuri repeated, taking her hands. "I do not have a ring yet, and this is probably the worst proposal in history, but I love you and Emma loves you, and I want you in our lives permanently. I want to wake up next to you every morning and come home to you every night. I want to build a life together, a real partnership." "What do you say?" "I say yes," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, of course yes." Emma's squeal of delight told them she had been listening, and she came running over, firefly jar forgotten. "Does this mean Victoria is going to be my mom?" she asked, looking between them hopefully. "If you want me to be," Victoria said, kneeling down to Emma's level. "I will never try to replace your birth mother, but I would be honored to be your mom in the ways that matter, if that is okay with you." Emma threw her arms around Victoria's neck. "I want that," she said fiercely. "I want that so much." Yuri pulled them both into his arms, his two favorite people in the world, and felt complete in a way he had never experienced before. The engagement was met with mixed reactions. Victoria's board of directors was concerned about potential conflicts of interest and the optics of their CEO marrying someone without significant wealth. They suggested a prenuptial agreement, which Victoria flatly refused to even discuss with Yuri. "My personal life is not up for board approval," she told them firmly during a tense meeting. "Yuri is going to be my husband, and that is final. If anyone has a problem with that, they can tender their resignation." No one resigned. Yuri's reaction to the controversy was characteristically straightforward. "They are worried I am marrying you for money," he said. It was not a question. "Some of them, yes," Victoria admitted. They were curled up on her couch, a bottle of wine open on the coffee table. She had finally convinced Yuri to stay at her house sometimes, though he still insisted on maintaining his rental for Emma's sense of stability. "We should do a prenup," Yuri said. Victoria sat up, startled. "What? No, I do not want one." "Victoria, be practical," Yuri said gently. "You built that company from nothing. It is your life's work. I do not want anyone thinking I have designs on it, and I do not want you to ever worry that I am with you for anything other than love." "I would never worry about that," Victoria protested. "Maybe not now," Yuri said. "But things change, and I want there to be no question. I am not marrying Oasis Technologies. I am marrying you. So let us protect what is yours and build what is ours together." Victoria felt herself falling in love with him all over again. "You are remarkable, do you know that?" "I am practical," Yuri corrected. "There is a difference." They agreed on a prenup that protected Victoria's existing assets and company shares while splitting anything they acquired during the marriage. Yuri insisted on it being fair, which meant Victoria's lawyers spent weeks negotiating terms that were far more generous to Yuri than he wanted. "You are impossible," Victoria told him after he rejected the fifth draft for being too weighted in his favor. "I am principled," Yuri countered. "I want a partnership, not a handout." They found a compromise eventually, and Victoria signed the papers with a sense of relief. This was real. They were building something lasting. The wedding took place in September, a small ceremony in Victoria's backyard, with only their closest friends and family. Victoria wore a simple white dress that cost more than most cars, but looked elegant rather than ostentatious. Yuri wore a new suit that Victoria had insisted on buying him, and for once, he did not argue because he wanted to look his best when he married the love of his life. Emma was the flower girl, wearing a purple dress she had picked out herself and carrying a basket of rose petals. She took her job very seriously, placing each petal with careful precision until Yuri whispered that she could just scatter them. And then she threw the entire basket into the air with a gleeful laugh that had the whole gathering chuckling. Mrs. Chen officiated, having gotten ordained online specifically for the occasion. Her ceremony was short and sweet, focusing on the importance of partnership and showing up for each other through the difficult times. "Marriage is not about grand gestures," she said, looking at the couple before her. "It is about the small moments. It is about shoveling a stranger's driveway before dawn because it is the right thing to do. It is about showing up at a hospital and staying even when you are not asked. It is about choosing each other every single day, even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard." When Yuri kissed his bride, Emma cheered so loudly that several people jumped, and the moment was captured perfectly by the photographer Victoria had hired. The reception was held in a tent strung with lights, with good food and better company. Victoria danced with Yuri to a song they had picked together, and then she danced with Emma, spinning the little girl until they were both dizzy and laughing. "Are you happy?" Yuri asked later, when they had a quiet moment alone while Emma was occupied with the elaborate dessert table. "I am happier than I ever thought possible," Victoria said honestly. "6 months ago, I would have told you I had everything I wanted. Success, money, respect in my industry, but I was wrong. This is everything. You and Emma, that is what matters." "We are pretty great," Yuri agreed, pulling her close. "But you are not so bad yourself." Their honeymoon was delayed because Yuri refused to take Emma out of school, so they planned a family trip to Disney World over winter break instead. In the meantime, they focused on blending their lives in more permanent ways. The decision about where to live was complicated. Victoria's house was bigger and more comfortable, but Yuri's rental was Emma's home, the only place she had lived since the divorce. In the end, they compromised in a way that worked for everyone. Victoria bought a new house, not as ostentatiously large as her current one, but spacious enough for their growing family. It had a big backyard for Emma to play in, a home office for Victoria's remote work days, and a garage where Yuri could keep his tools and truck. Emma got to pick out her own room, painting it a deep blue and covering the walls with glow-in-the-dark stars. Victoria worked with her to create a reading nook by the window, complete with beanbag chairs and a bookshelf that they slowly filled together. Yuri was careful not to let Victoria's wealth change who he was. He kept his warehouse job, though he eventually quit the snow removal business because the winter hours were too much with his new family responsibilities. Victoria respected his need to contribute financially, even though his entire annual salary was pocket change to her. She understood that it was not about the money. It was about his identity, his sense of purpose. They opened a joint account for household expenses, and Yuri insisted on contributing his fair share. Victoria agreed, even though her definition of fair share and his were vastly different. It was another compromise, another way they learned to build a life that honored both of their values. Emma flourished in their new home. She had her own space, but also the security of knowing both her parents were there every night. Victoria helped her with homework and science projects, bringing a level of resources that astounded Yuri. When Emma expressed interest in coding, Victoria set her up with a kid-friendly programming course and spent hours sitting with her, debugging and problem-solving. "You are going to create a monster," Yuri joked one evening, watching Emma's intense focus as she worked on building a simple game. "I am nurturing her talents," Victoria corrected. "There is a difference. Besides, if she wants to be a paleontologist or an astronaut or a programmer, I want her to know she can do any of it." "She is 8, Yuri said. "Maybe we should let her just be a kid." "She is being a kid," Victoria said. "Kids explore and learn and discover what they love." "That is what childhood should be." Yuri could not argue with that. Emma was happy, truly happy, and that was all that mattered. The first real test of their marriage came in December, nearly 3 months after the wedding. Victoria had to travel to Singapore for a crucial negotiation with potential partners. The trip would take 10 days, including travel time, and it was the first time she would be away from Yuri and Emma since the wedding. "I do not want to go," she told Yuri the night before her flight. They were lying in bed, Victoria's head on his chest and his arms around her. "I hate leaving you guys." "We will be fine," Yuri assured her. "It is 10 days. Emma and I will hold down the fort and you will come back and tell us all about Singapore. Call me every day," Victoria asked. "I want to know everything. What Emma ate for breakfast, how school went, all of it." "I will call you so much you will get sick of us," Yuri promised, but he missed her desperately. The house felt wrong without Victoria's presence, too quiet despite Emma's chatter. He realized how completely she had become part of their lives, how much he had come to rely on her partnership in the everyday tasks of parenting and household management. Emma missed her too, asking when Victoria would be home and whether they could video call her. They did, scheduling calls around the time difference, and Emma would tell Victoria about her day with an enthusiasm that made Victoria's heart ache with longing. On the 8th day, Emma came down with a stomach bug. It was nothing serious, just a 24-hour virus, but Yuri found himself wishing Victoria was there. Not because he could not handle it alone, but because it felt wrong to go through it without her. "I wish Victoria was here," Emma said weakly, after Yuri had settled her on the couch with a bucket and some ginger ale. "Me too, princess," Yuri said, smoothing her hair back. "But she will be home in 2 days. Can you hold on until then?" Emma nodded, and then promptly fell asleep, exhausted from being sick, when Victoria finally walked through the door 2 days later, dragging her suitcase and looking exhausted from 20 hours of travel. Emma launched herself off the couch and into Victoria's arms. "You are home," Emma said, clinging tight. "I am home," Victoria agreed, tears in her eyes. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too," Emma said. "I was sick, but Dad took care of me. He is really good at the sick stuff." "I am sure he is," Victoria said, looking up to meet Yuri's eyes over Emma's head. He was smiling, and the love in his gaze made her feel like she had truly come home. That night, after Emma was asleep, Yuri and Victoria lay in bed and talked for hours. Victoria described the successful negotiations and the beautiful city, and Yuri told her about Emma's illness and how much they had missed her. "I do not ever want to be away from you that long again," Victoria said. "It was awful." "Welcome to how I have been feeling," Yuri said. "You are stuck with us now. No more 10-day trips." "I will talk to my team about delegating more," Victoria promised. "The company will not fall apart if I am not at every international meeting. I have good people. I need to trust them more." It was a turning point. Victoria realizing that she did not have to do everything herself, that she could step back and be present for her family without sacrificing her company's success. As winter settled in properly, their first full season as a family, they established traditions. Sunday morning pancakes that Yuri made while Victoria and Emma set the table. Friday movie nights with popcorn and blanket forts. Saturday morning grocery shopping together, the 3 of them navigating the aisles and debating what to make for dinner that week. Victoria had never understood the appeal of routine before, always seeking the next challenge, the next acquisition, the next big win. But there was something deeply satisfying about these small rituals, the way they wove their lives together into something stronger than any individual thread. In January, Emma came home from school with a permission slip for a week-long outdoor education program in the spring. It cost $300, and she handed it to Yuri with the same resigned expression she used to wear when asking for things they could not afford. "I know it is a lot," she said quietly, "but my teacher says it is really educational. We learn about ecosystems and conservation and stuff, but if we cannot afford it, that is okay." Yuri looked at the permission slip, then at Victoria, who was carefully not saying anything. They had talked about this, about how to handle Emma's needs now that money was not the constant stressor it used to be. "Of course you can go," Yuri said firmly. "This sounds like an amazing opportunity." "Really?" Emma's face lit up. "I can actually go?" "Really," Yuri confirmed. "And you never have to worry about whether we can afford things like this. If it is educational and you want to do it, the answer is yes." Emma threw her arms around him, and Victoria felt her heart swell. She knew how much it had cost Yuri to say that, to accept that their financial situation had changed, that Emma no longer had to make herself small and undemanding. Later, after Emma was in bed, Victoria found Yuri in his garage, working on restoring an old toolbox he had picked up at a thrift store. "Thank you," she said, leaning against the workbench, "for what you said to Emma tonight." "I still hate that you have all the money," Yuri admitted, setting down his sandpaper. "Not because I am jealous or resentful, but because I want to be able to provide for my daughter. But I am learning that providing for her means giving her opportunities, not just paying for things. And if I can swallow my pride so she can have experiences that will enrich her life, then that is what I need to do." "You are an incredible father," Victoria said, "and an incredible man. Emma is lucky to have you. We both are." "I am the lucky one," Yuri said, pulling her into his arms. "6 months ago, I was barely keeping my head above water. Now I have a wife who challenges me and supports me, and my daughter has a mother figure who shows up for her every single day. That is not luck. That is a miracle." They stood there in the garage, surrounded by tools and sawdust, and Victoria thought about how far they had both come. She had learned to be part of a family, to let someone else be her partner instead of doing everything alone. Yuri had learned to accept help, to let go of pride when it served his daughter's best interests. Spring brought new changes. Victoria promoted one of her vice presidents to handle more of the international operations, freeing up her time to work from home several days a week. She converted one of the spare bedrooms into a proper office and found that she was more productive when she could take breaks to have lunch with Yuri or help Emma with homework. Yuri was promoted to a supervisor position at the warehouse, with better pay and more stable hours. It meant he was home for dinner every night, which he had not been able to do consistently in years. He still struggled sometimes with the disparity between his income and Victoria's, but he was learning to focus on what he brought to their partnership beyond money. His hands-on approach to parenting, his practical problem-solving, his ability to keep them grounded in what truly mattered. Emma's outdoor education trip was a huge success. She came home full of stories about hiking and learning to identify plants and seeing a deer up close. Victoria and Yuri had missed her desperately, but they had also enjoyed having a week alone together, remembering that they were a couple in addition to being parents. "We should think about having another baby," Victoria said one night, the words surprising even herself. Yuri looked up from his book, equally surprised. Really, Victoria said. "I know we have not talked about it, and maybe it is too soon, but I love being Emma's mom. I love this family we have built. And I think I would like to experience having a baby with you, raising a child together from the beginning." "I would love that," Yuri said slowly, "but I need to know you are sure. A baby is a huge commitment and your career is important. I do not want you to feel like you have to choose." "I am not choosing," Victoria said. "I am expanding. Women have babies and careers all the time. I have an excellent team at work and a partner at home who is hands-on and committed. I can do both." They talked late into the night, discussing logistics and concerns and dreams for the future. By the time they finally fell asleep, they had agreed to try for another baby, whenever it happened. They told Emma a few weeks later, wanting her to be part of the decision since it would affect her life too. "How would you feel about having a little brother or sister?" Victoria asked carefully. They were making dinner together, Emma's official job being to tear lettuce for the salad. Emma stopped mid-tier, her eyes going wide. "Really? You want to have a baby?" "We do," Yuri said. "But only if you are okay with it. You are our priority, and if you are not ready to share us, that is okay." Emma was quiet for a long moment, considering. "Would you love the baby more than me?" she asked finally, her voice small. Victoria knelt down beside her. "Emma, look at me. We will never love anyone more than you. Love does not divide, it multiplies. Having another baby does not mean we will love you less. It means our family will have more love in it. Does that make sense?" Emma nodded slowly. "I think so, and it might be nice to have a little brother or sister, someone to play with." "So you are okay with it?" Yuri asked. "I am okay with it," Emma confirmed. Then she grinned. "Can I teach them about dinosaurs?" "You can teach them whatever you want," Victoria laughed. "Within reason." It took 6 months, but in November, Victoria's pregnancy test came back positive. She told Yuri by wrapping the test in a box and giving it to him over breakfast on a Saturday morning. "What is this?" he asked, puzzled. "Open it," Victoria said, barely able to contain her excitement. Yuri unwrapped the box, lifted the lid, and stared at the pregnancy test. "Is this real?" "You are pregnant?" "I am pregnant," Victoria confirmed, and then she was in his arms, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. Emma came downstairs to find them like that, wrapped up in each other and smiling through tears. "What is going on?" she asked. "You are going to be a big sister," Yuri told her, and Emma screamed with delight so loudly that the neighbors probably heard. The pregnancy was relatively easy, though Victoria was exhausted the first trimester. She cut back her hours at work even more, delegating tasks and trusting her team in ways she never had before. Yuri was attentive and supportive, taking on more of the household tasks without being asked and making sure Victoria had time to rest. Emma was the most excited of all, constantly talking to Victoria's growing belly and making plans for all the things she would teach her sibling. She helped them set up the nursery, painting a mural of a forest seen on one wall with Victoria's patient guidance. "I want the baby to know about nature," Emma explained seriously, "because taking care of the planet is important." "You are absolutely right," Victoria agreed. "They are lucky to have such a wise big sister." The baby arrived in early July, a healthy boy they named Caleb Yuri Vance. He had Yuri's honey-colored eyes and Victoria's nose, and from the moment he was born, he was surrounded by love. Emma held him in the hospital, her expression one of pure wonder. "He is so small," she whispered. "Was I this small?" "You were even smaller," Yuri told her. "You were 5 pounds." "Caleb is 7. I am going to protect him," Emma declared. "I am going to be the best big sister ever." And she was. As Caleb grew, Emma was patient and gentle, teaching him to stack blocks and reading him stories about dinosaurs even when he was too young to understand. Yuri and Victoria watched their children together and marveled at the family they had created. "Sometimes I think about that morning when you first shoveled my driveway," Victoria said one night. Caleb was 6 months old, finally sleeping through the night, and they had stolen a few minutes alone on the back porch. "If you had driven past my house that day, none of this would exist." "I do not believe that," Yuri said, pulling her closer. "I think we were always going to find each other." "Maybe not that morning, but somehow, some way. You think we were meant to be," Victoria teased gently. "I think you were worth shoveling 1,000 driveways for," Yuri said seriously. "I think Emma and Caleb and this life we have built is worth every struggle, every hard day, every moment of doubt. I would do it all again without hesitation." Victoria kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Yuri Vance." "I love you too, Victoria Vance," he replied. always. As they sat together under the stars, their children sleeping safely inside and their future stretching out before them full of possibility, Victoria thought about the journey that had brought them here. She had spent years building an empire, conquering markets and outmaneuvering competitors, but her greatest achievement was this: a family built on trust, respect, and unwavering love. Yuri thought about the man he had been, struggling to keep his head above water and certain that he would never be anything more than barely enough. But Victoria had seen him differently. She had seen his strength and his kindness and his worth, and she had loved him not despite his struggles, but because of the character they had forged in him. Emma, already asleep upstairs with dreams of teaching Caleb about constellations, had two parents who showed up for her every single day, who made her feel valued and heard and loved beyond measure. She would grow up knowing that family was not always blood, but rather the people who chose to stay, who did the hard work of showing up even when it was difficult. And Caleb, too young to know how lucky he was, would grow up in a home filled with laughter and books, and the kind of security that comes from being unconditionally loved. Years passed in the way they do, slowly and then all at once. Emma graduated from elementary school, then middle school, excelling in science and mathematics, and already talking about studying environmental engineering in college. She never forgot the lessons her father had taught her about hard work and humility, or the lessons Victoria had shown her about ambition and possibility. Caleb grew into a curious, energetic boy who loved building things and taking them apart to see how they worked. He idolized his father and followed him everywhere, learning how to use tools and fix broken things. Victoria taught him to code when he was 7, and he took to it with natural aptitude. Yuri eventually went back to school, taking online classes at night to finish his degree. It took him 4 years, but with Victoria's encouragement and Emma babysitting Caleb during evening classes, he earned his bachelor's in education. At 38, he finally became the teacher he had always dreamed of being, taking a position at the same school Emma had attended as a child. Victoria stepped down as CEO of Oasis Technologies when Caleb was 5, transitioning to a chairman role that gave her more flexibility and freedom. She had spent 15 years building the company, and she was ready to focus on other things: her family, philanthropy, mentoring young entrepreneurs. She never regretted the decision. The company continued to thrive under new leadership, and she had the satisfaction of knowing she had built something lasting while also being present for the people she loved most. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Yuri and Victoria renewed their vows in the same backyard where they had married. Emma was 18 now, preparing to leave for college in the fall, and Caleb was 9, standing beside his father as best man with a grin that showed missing teeth. 10 years ago, I married my best friend, Yuri said during the ceremony, holding Victoria's hands. And every year since has been better than the last. You taught me that accepting help is not weakness, that love multiplies instead of divides, and that I was worthy of the kind of happiness I thought only existed in movies. I look forward to 10 more years, and then 10 more after that, and then the rest of our lives. I love you, Victoria. Thank you for shoveling into my life and staying. Victoria laughed through her tears. I think you were the one doing the shoveling. Metaphorically, I mean, Yuri said with a grin. I know what you meant, Victoria said. And Yuri, you taught me what matters. You showed me that success is not about what you build or how much money you make. It is about who you love and who loves you back. It is about showing up for the people who matter and building a life that feels like home. I love you more today than I did 10 years ago, and I will love you more tomorrow than I do today. Forever. They kissed while Emma and Caleb cheered, and their friends and family applauded, and the late September sun painted everything golden. That night, after the party had ended and the kids were in bed, Yuri and Victoria sat in their bedroom and talked about the future. Emma would be leaving for college soon, and while they were excited for her, they would miss her desperately. Caleb was growing up so fast, already halfway through elementary school. Time was moving quickly, the way it always did. "Do you have any regrets?" Victoria asked, lying with her head on Yuri's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. "Not a single one," Yuri said without hesitation. "This life, this family, it is everything I never knew I needed. What about you?" "No regrets," Victoria confirmed, "except maybe that I did not meet you sooner." "We met exactly when we were supposed to," Yuri said. "If we had met earlier, we would not have been ready for each other." "I was still figuring out how to be a good father. You were still building your company. The timing was perfect." Victoria smiled, knowing he was right. Everything had unfolded exactly as it needed to, bringing them to this moment, this life, this love. "I am going to miss Emma when she leaves," Victoria said softly. "The house will be so quiet." "We still have Caleb," Yuri reminded her, "and Emma will come home for holidays and breaks. She is not gone forever. She is just starting the next chapter of her life." "When did you become so wise?" Victoria asked. "When I married someone who taught me how to see the bigger picture," Yuri replied. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, secure in the knowledge that whatever came next, they would face it together. The day came when they dropped Emma off at college, helping her move into her dorm and meeting her roommate. Emma was excited and nervous, ready for independence, but still young enough to tear up when saying goodbye. "I am going to miss you both so much," she said, hugging them tight. "And Caleb. Tell him I love him. We will visit," Victoria promised, "and you can come home whenever you want. This will always be your home." "I know," Emma said. "Thank you for everything, for being the best parents anyone could ask for." "We are so proud of you," Yuri said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are going to do amazing things, Emma. But remember, no matter how successful you become, no matter what you achieve, your worth is not in your accomplishments. It is in who you are. You are kind and smart and compassionate, and those are the things that matter most." Emma nodded, crying openly now, and they held her until she pulled away, ready to start her adventure. The drive home was quiet, both Yuri and Victoria lost in their thoughts. When they arrived, Caleb was waiting on the front steps, looking smaller than usual. "Is it weird without Emma?" he asked. "A little bit," Victoria admitted, sitting beside him. "But she is doing what she is supposed to do, growing up following her dreams. That is what we want for her." "I am going to miss her," Caleb said. "Me too," Yuri said, sitting on his other side. "But that is the thing about family. Even when we are apart, we are still connected. Emma will always be your sister, and she will always love you. Distance does not change that." Caleb leaned against his father, and they sat there together, the three of them, adjusting to their new normal. Life continued in its beautiful, messy way. Emma thrived at college, calling home regularly and coming back for holidays with stories and new ideas. She was studying environmental engineering, passionate about creating sustainable solutions for a changing world. Yuri and Victoria supported her completely, attending her presentations and celebrating her successes. Caleb grew older, his interests shifting from blocks to robotics to music. He learned to play guitar, and the house was often filled with the sound of him practicing, working through songs with determined focus. He had inherited his father's work ethic and his mother's innovative thinking, and watching him grow into himself was one of Yuri and Victoria's greatest joys. On a cold morning in February, nearly 15 years after Yuri had first shoveled Victoria's driveway, they woke up early and drove to their old neighborhood. Victoria had sold her original house years ago, but she wanted to see it again, to remember where it all started. They parked on the street and looked at the house where Victoria had lived when she was lonely and successful and searching for something she had not even known she was missing. "That is where I was standing when I first saw you," Victoria said, pointing to the upstairs window. "I watched you clear my driveway and thought you were the most interesting man I had ever seen." "I was just trying to help out," Yuri said. "I had no idea I was being watched by a beautiful CEO. Would it have changed anything if you had known?" Victoria asked. "Probably," Yuri admitted. I would have been too intimidated to accept your coffee invitation. I would have convinced myself we were from different worlds and I had nothing to offer you. I am glad you did not know then, Victoria said, because you had everything to offer me. You had kindness and integrity and love. You had yourself, and that was exactly what I needed. They sat in the car, remembering, grateful for the choices that had led them to each other. We should get home, Yuri said eventually. Caleb has a concert tonight, and I promised I would help him with his stage fright. Our son, the rock star, Victoria said with a smile. Who would have thought? I would have, Yuri said, because he is our kid and our kids are extraordinary. They drove home through the February morning, the sun rising over the city, painting the snow-covered streets in shades of pink and gold. They had built a life together, these two people who should never have met but did. A life full of love and challenge and growth. A life that mattered. And as they pulled into their driveway, Caleb's face appearing in the window with a wave, Victoria thought about that morning so many years ago. She had been standing at her window, alone and searching, when a stranger had appeared in her driveway with a shovel and changed everything. Love, she had learned, often arrived in unexpected ways. Sometimes it looked like a struggling father working before dawn to make ends meet. Sometimes it showed up as an act of kindness with no expectation of reward. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it stayed. It grew and deepened and became the foundation upon which you built everything else. Home, Yuri said, turning off the engine. Home, Victoria agreed, taking his hand. And together, they walked inside, to where their son was waiting, to where their life was happening, to where love had taken root and flourished in ways neither of them could have imagined on that cold February morning when everything began with a simple act of kindness and a driveway cleared of snow.